Why, hello, it is I, Chris Brogan. I was looking through some articles because it's my job to help companies use tech to drive better human interactions, better customer interactions. And I've been running into the challenge of explaining to people where are we now and where are we headed next. And so, for instance, some companies are dealing with the fact that they hear a lot about artificial intelligence. They hear a lot about things like chatbots. They hear about Internet of Things, and they don't really know where they fit, and they don't know what matters to them and where they should be putting their time and attention. It's a totally fair thing to be feeling because they're just not sure. And then also, I think one of the biggest challenges that we have is that people aren't fully aware of the complexities that are going to be in place to drive this kind of change. And what's that mean and how are we going to get there? So for instance, when we start thinking about artificial intelligence, I have an interview coming up really shortly with Christopher Benson, who's the chief AI scientist over at Honeywell. And Chris was saying that the big challenges are that companies are going to have a big, huge data set to start with so that they have something to pull from. Artificial intelligence is basically the act of really sifting through a great amount of information and data and then putting together some potential actions based on that data. So if you don't have any, you don't really have much of a choice of what's going to come next. The other interesting part of that, though, if you think about it, is that when it comes to putting this kind of information together, the people who are running business right now aren't necessarily specifically asking for this, or they're asking for it in the abstract. And the people who are doing this as scientists, they're having a real tough time explaining what's going on in that space. And so bridging this is going to be really important. And I'll give you an example. I was looking at this article here. This is customer service in the age of conversational commerce. And what the big opportunity is here. Ooh, let me zoom it in the right way. What the big opportunity is here is that this kind of information is customers are saying about companies, I'm much more interested in being able to talk to or message a business if I have to. I want to be able to do as easy as texting my friend. I want to be able to send a message. So Facebook Messenger is pretty high up on this one. Evidently, Apple's going to roll this out in iMessage. WhatsApp has a business application now as well. So this is saying that what's happening is that companies are going to have to be available. They're going to have to be ready to say, hey, here's my way of connecting and whatnot. And they're going to have to be able to say, here's how you can talk to me as simply as you would talk to some friend of yours in chat. And that's a big challenge. So there's one. The other is that people don't really understand what they need to have or where they need to go to get ready to move this thing forward. So for instance, one of the challenges is that we're going to have to be very active in the art of figuring out both all the data that we need to collect, ways that we can abstract that data, ways that we can use that data faster and in real time. Because a lot of times people will say, oh, well, we're collecting all that data. But what they're saying is we're collecting it, we're not using it, or we're using it in sort of the abstract months from now and all that. And there's really going to have to be this sort of bridge where we go from data being collected to data being used and interpreted as real time as possible. If I'm in the store and there's something not available to me, it's no longer good enough just to call around to other stores. So what's that going to look like? And when it comes to thinking about the abstracts of this, collecting and figuring out the data, it's interesting because one way to look at all this is to look at how robots see this. So this article in Futurity was talking about how abstract thinking makes robots better planners. This is teaching robots how to think more like a person. And the big goal is how do you put this information out there in a way that people can understand it and interpret it, but that robots and data collection and all that are also doing what they need to do to interpret it. And so there's work to be had here. And I think that whenever that kind of thing comes about, we get a little twitchy. We don't really know what we want to do next. We don't understand where our place is in it. And so we don't necessarily take a next step or whatnot. So I think that's a big challenge as well. The other piece of information I wanted to share with you, or the other article I wanted to share with you, is that examples of the way AI can work is that it can really do a lot to interpret information that you already have. So this article in Wired magazine was saying that this AI reads privacy policies so you don't have to. Nobody really reads the privacy policies. We all say that we do. But the way AI works is you stuff a lot of data in its belly. You let it start to guess some things. It asks you some questions back sometimes. And then you're able to kind of train it to take an action. So it's a really interesting idea to say that what if there's an artificial intelligence that could interpret privacy policies and or terms and conditions policies, and what would that do for us? What would that bring to light? And so I think that it's very here and now to start thinking about what are you going to do with your business and how are you going to deliver that. And one last article to share about this kind of thing, and it was very interesting to me. It's because what they're saying in this article is that it seems that consumers are very open to buying automatically via digital assistants. Now, I say that's interesting. It's because I already do that sort of a thing. I always ask Alexa to repurchase certain things that we use a lot of in my house. And so in this particular graph here, it's talking about how useful will automatic buying be to you. And as you see, the average user of these kinds of services, 35% of them say that it would be very useful. 17% say life-changing. So total up, that's a little over 50% of people say that it'll be really cool. For heavy users like myself, that's getting closer to 80% of people are saying that this is something that they want to see. So in your world, if you're not yet working with these kinds of things like these chatbots and conversational design and all that, what I'm saying is you're heading towards not being operable with the rest of everybody around you. And so that's really worth thinking about. And that's part of what I'm working on in my business work, in my consulting and advising work, because it's really hard for business types to see the gap. And it's really hard for the science types and the technology types to explain this in a way that helps people better understand the use cases. So in a way, I'm acting as sort of an ad hoc product manager. So hopefully this all makes sense. And if you have any questions at all, you can leave a message or you can drop an email, chris@chrisbrogan.com. I made this using Ecamm Live. It's the easiest way to do Facebook Live on a Mac. Take a look at that. cbrogan.me/ecamm live. So glad to spend some time with you. Talk to you soon.